I was looking at the jagged red stripes across his arm, and my first instinct was to call the police for a physical assault. But the evidence wasn't pointing to a weapon made of leather. It was pointing to a weapon made of leaves. It is 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The clinic is humming with that post-lunch energy. Nurses rushing past with clipboards, the printer jamming in the hallway, and the smell of antiseptic trying and failing to cover up the smell of stale coffee. I grabbed the next chart from the door. David, 22 years old. Chief complaint, skin irritation. Now, skin irritation is the medical equivalent of a check engine light. It could be nothing. It could be a bug bite. Or, in my line of work, it could be the first sign of something that shuts down the whole building. I walk into exam room 3, and the vibe is instantly wrong. Usually, patients are sitting on the crinkly paper, scrolling through their phones, bored out of their minds. Not David. David is vibrating. He is sitting on the edge of the table, knees bouncing up and down like a piston. He is wearing a heavy, dark gray hoodie. It is mid-July. That is red flag number 1. I keep my voice low and steady and ask him what is going on today. He does not look at me. He is staring at the floor tiles like they hold the secrets of the universe. His right hand is clamped over his left forearm, gripping it so hard his knuckles are white. He is digging his fingernails into the thick fabric of that hoodie. He mumbles that it burns. He says it feels like it is on fire. I step closer and ask him to take the jacket off. He flinches, literally jumps a little. He asks if he has to. I tell him I cannot treat what I cannot see. He swallows hard. He looks terrified. And immediately, my brain stops thinking dermatology and starts thinking social work. Because young guys do not act like this over a rash. They act like this when they are hiding something. Or protecting someone. Slowly, painfully slowly, he releases his death grip on his arm. He grabs the cuff of the hoodie sleeve. He starts to pull it up. He is wincing with every inch of fabric that moves. I am bracing myself for an infection. Maybe an abscess from a needle. Maybe a spider bite. I was not prepared for what was under that sleeve. David yanks the fabric past his elbow, and the room goes dead silent. I have seen a lot of rashes. I have seen allergic reactions that turn people into puffballs. I have seen hives that look like maps of Europe. This was not that. Running diagonally across his inner forearm were 3 distinct, angry red streaks. They were perfectly parallel. They were raised, swollen, and violent. The geometry was impossible for a natural disease. Viruses do not draw straight lines. Bacteria does not own a ruler. Nature is messy. Nature is round and patchy. Lines? Lines mean humans. Lines mean tools. I stepped back, my heart rate kicking up a notch. My tone shifts from friendly to serious. I ask him how this happened. He is rubbing the area around the streaks, his face twisted in misery. He says he does not know and that he just woke up with it. I stared at the arm. I grabbed my penlight from my pocket and clicked it on. I shined the beam at an angle across the skin to see the topography of the wound. It was raised. Welts. I looked him dead in the eye and told him that these looked like lash marks. He blinked and asked what I meant. I told him it looks like he was struck. With a belt. Or a switch. Or a cord. I am tracing the beam of the penlight down the longest streak. It starts heavy and tapers off at the end. In forensics, we call this a tail. It happens when a flexible weapon strikes the skin and wraps around or drags off. It is the signature of velocity. I asked him who did this to him. I was not asking as a doctor anymore. I was asking as a mandatory reporter. If this kid is in an abusive situation, I cannot let him leave. David shouted that it was nobody. He shrank back against the wall. He swore he was alone, hiking in the state park yesterday, played video games and woke up like this. I felt a surge of frustration. I hate being lied to. It wastes time. And in medicine, time is tissue. I pointed with the penlight. I told him he does not get whipped by a ghost while playing Call of Duty. Hiking does not leave linear welts. I asked him if he got into a fight or if someone hurt him. I reminded him that everything in the room is confidential. He got agitated again, scratching at the red lines. He said it itches so bad he wants to cut his arm off. He asked me if a belt mark would itch. I paused. That was a good point. Trauma hurts, it throbs. It rarely itches. But looking at those angry red stripes, my brain could not reconcile the visual data. It looked like assault. It looked violent. The skin was angry, inflamed, and screaming trauma. I took a deep breath. I decided to assume he was telling the truth and look closer. I walked over to the counter and grabbed the dermatoscope. For those who do not know, a dermatoscope is basically a heavy-duty magnifying glass with a specialized polarized light system. It lets you see below the surface glare of the skin. It turns a smudge into a high-definition landscape. I sat down on the stool and pulled David's arm toward me. I murmured for him to hold still. I pressed the lens against the first red streak. I expected to see purpura, which are broken blood vessels under the skin. That is what happens when you get hit. The capillaries burst, blood leaks out, and you get a bruise. If he was whipped, I would see thousands of tiny red dots of spilled blood. I looked through the lens, no blood. Instead, I saw water, tiny, microscopic vesicles, fluid-filled blisters, tighter than a drum, clustered together like grapes. But here was the kicker. They were arranged in a perfect, single-file line. I moved the scope down the streak. More blisters, all marching in a row. Then it clicked. The realization hit me so hard I almost laughed. The geometry was not impact. It was drag. It was not a solid object striking him. It was a liquid painting him. I sat back and clicked the light off. I asked David if he went off trail when he was hiking. He looked confused by the pivot but admitted he went into the brush to pee. I asked if he had to push through any vines. He shrugged and said maybe, because there are plants everywhere in the woods. I grabbed a piece of paper and sketched a quick diagram. I told him he did not get hit, he got painted. I turned the paper to him. I told him this is RHU's dermatitis. He knows it as poison ivy. He looked at his arm, then at me, confused because it looked like a whip mark. I told him that is the forensic clue. Most people think poison ivy is just a patch of red bumps. But the plant carries an oil called Urushiol. It is thick, invisible, and incredibly sticky. Think of it like wet paint. I explained that he walked through the brush, and a vine snapped back and dragged across his arm. It did not cut him. It wiped a streak of oil across his skin, like a paintbrush. David's eyes went wide. I explained that he did not feel it yesterday because the oil takes 12 to 48 hours to activate the immune system. He woke up this morning and his body finally realized it had been tagged. The shape of the rash is a perfect fossil record of the motion of the plant against his skin. The whip mark was not from violence. It was a friction burn from nature's deadliest oil. David slumped, the tension draining out of his body instantly. He asked if that meant he wasn't assaulted by a ghost. I smiled and told him no. He was assaulted by a shrub. I prescribed him a high-dose steroid cream and told him to wash his hoodie in hot water, twice. Urushiol oil can stay active on clothes for years. If he touched that sleeve again, he would just reinfect himself. As he walked out, looking a hell of a lot lighter than he did when he walked in, I jotted down the final notes in his chart. Here is the insider reality. The body is a crime scene, and the rash pattern is the witness. In medicine, we use geometry to solve mysteries. If you see round spots, look inside. It is usually a virus or bacteria spreading through the blood. But if you see lines, if you see sharp angles or geometric streaks, that is almost always an outside job. That is the world touching you. So next time you see a strange mark on your skin that looks like a whip, a scratch or a streak, do not panic about mysterious injuries. Ask yourself what touched you 2 days ago. Because sometimes, the weapon is just a leaf that you brush past on a sunny afternoon. Wash your skin, watch where you step, and stay safe out there.